The Paco party is over as the Dons say goodbye to the dirt merchant and he ships north for a new life. This is the Sash, definitely not the official podcast of the Essendon Football Club. I am your host, Rob, here with you as always, and joining me over satellite is James and Joel. Hello, James.
Hey, Rob. How are you, mate? Good to see you. I know you're up in sunny Queensland at the moment, so pretty jealous. And, yeah, I can see you're rocking the Early Beach T-shirt like a good tourist. So some good advertisement for the beautiful Early Beach. Pretty quiet on my end. I did pick up some bartending work in Sydney, just part-time, recently. Saw some interesting costumes, but that's all I've been up to recently, just filling in the time in my off-season. How are you, boys?
Very good, thank you.
Good. And Joel's with us as well. Hello, Joel.
Hello, Rob, James, how you going? Were you just rolling out the red carpet waiting for Paco to arrive, James, at the function, or
well,
he would have been a controversial couple himself?
In only the way that Jake Stringer could. As soon as a controversy pops up somewhere, he's almost immediately landed the spot there. So I did think that was pretty ironic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And as you did mention there, James, I am currently in far north Queensland. So if I do sound different or worse, I'm not sure how this is going to come out in the tape. That is why I'm not at home with the microphone and everything else, but who knows, maybe the advances in technology on my laptop means it's not too bad. I did consider, I was like, do I pack my microphone? I was like, no, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. And then, lo and behold, Stringer leaves. I was like, I should probably do a pod. So here we are. I just want to quickly ask either of you, did any of you catch any of the deadline day vision, the broadcast? Because I must say, if you're a fan of men standing in corridors, does not get much better than that, boys. Does not get much better than that, Joel.
You should do a top 5 men standing in corridors, top 5 Trey Radio corridor stands as well.
Yeah,
the Stringer video was fantastic. I think there should be more of those.
Thank you. Yeah, I was sitting on that for a few weeks ever since they said he was probably going to go. I was like, I got to do something, and I don't know. I've just got like this stockpile of photos of him through his journey through Essendon. Someone commented being like, "Oh, where did you find that suit one? I've been looking for that forever." And I'm like, "Man, that's been saved in a favourite album on my phone for several years now." But yeah, the Zoom call one with the wine gets me. It just gets me because I'm trying to remember what it was for. Because I think I have a feeling it was either a like Zoom Crichton we did, or it was like an all-Australian thing because maybe he made the squad. I can't remember what it was, but I just remember them cutting to him and he's just like staring at the screen. And I'm like, oh my God, this is elite. This is absolutely elite.
Yeah.
So no, good fun. Yeah, go check out our Instagram and Facebook or TikTok if you haven't seen that one. Yeah, that was some of my final work, I reckon.
Yeah.
Might as well get into it, boys. Obviously, I assume everyone's aware he's listening to this podcast, but if you're not, Jake Stringer was traded to GWS for pick 53. It suffices to say the club wanted him out if 53 was what we were happy to negotiate for. James, immediate thoughts. How do you feel emotionally about Jakey heading away?
I think bigger picture, it's obviously disappointing to see him go. I think just from an entertainment perspective, regardless of what your thoughts are on Jake Stringer, I think it's beyond debate that he was an entertaining player to watch. And when he was up and going, there probably weren't too many better in the comp to watch. And for a side that's probably lacked a bit of X factor and you know, that sort of player for a long time, apart from maybe Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody, you know, it's obviously sad to see him go. But when I look at it in terms of what's best for us and honestly probably what's best for Jake at this stage of his career, I think it's probably a win-win for both sides. My understanding was that Brad Scott was less than impressed that Jake had triggered another year on the contract, and obviously that put the wheels in motion to see what else was maybe going on for Jake outside of Essendon. So it's probably not a surprise that he's gone. It obviously went down to the wire a little bit with GWS supposedly getting some cold feet with some other things happening in their world. But yeah, certainly sounds like to me we were pushing it maybe even more than the Giants were. And obviously, just for the pick 53, I think it was in the end, it probably shows that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think with everything that's kind of played out with him and Nick Hind over the past few weeks, I know when Nick Hind was delisted, there was a fair bit of discussion amongst fans and even ourselves who were a bit disappointed to see Hindy go. But with everything we've learnt about their interactions with some, I'm not sure if underworld figures is the right terminology, but, rather... not the kind of people you'd introduce to your mum.
You said that, Rob. Joel and I didn't say that. Just an FYI for anyone listening out there, that was wrong.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think because of that, I think we've seen now why Hindy and Jake have been moved on. Which on field, sad to see, but off field, I think you can certainly understand. And you did say there, James, Brad Scott might have been disappointed he triggered an extra year in his contract. Well, we know who put that trigger in there. The old Dodo, he may be gone, but he's still here. He's still weaving his magic.
Isn't he?
Jolly, emotions from you. How have you felt about it all?
I think probably as the season's gone on, I've been, more and more and more in their camp where I felt like it was the right time for Stringer to move on, and you've got to be happy with a lot of memories for him here. I remember kicked a massive snag against the Suns like 4 or 5 years ago from like inside the centre square to win us a game. And just like you think back to those and you're like, he did do some really special stuff. He had some really special moments this year as well, but like the amount of times that I was frustrated was very much starting to... I think as my expectation of our club has become more... Or, I feel like my expectation of what Brad Scott's trying to drive has gone more into this mindset of being hard-nosed and not putting up with bullshit and making sure everyone's on the train. The more I've been like, I think it is time for Jakey to find, a place somewhere else. So I'm not going to boo him. I'm going to still cheer him when I see him play next year. But I think it's a good move ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've mulled it over a bit over the past few weeks, and there was definitely a time there where when you were heading into a game, whether it be Marvel or the MCG, that part of the pre-game discussion was, what's the package going to bring this week? Are we going to get the good or the bad package? Because I think if you did a top 10 entertaining players in the competition, maybe even top 5 most entertaining players, and they're on, Jake's up there. Like he puts bums on seats, whether you like him or not. Just the things that bloke can do is just unbelievable. Unfortunately, he is a flash in the pan player as opposed to someone who can deliver week in, week out, which is obviously what we want. The proof is in the pudding. As great as he's been, as good the highlight reel has been, we still haven't won a final since he's been here. We've still been mediocre. So I think it's hard to argue that we're going to be that much worse off. I know there's a discussion about, how do we replace the goals, and maybe we can get into that in a moment. But I think let's just maybe gloss over some of those favourite moments and highlights, because I was trying to go through them today, and there's so many good ones. Just like every time he had a shot from the boundary, basically, was a highlight. Yeah. The the one I think I really liked the most, funny enough, it was a game we didn't even win. It was round 2021 against Sydney, where he had 9 clearances coming out of the middle and kicked 2 goals, and he was just mental in that game. He was just on that run of form. Some of the best footy I remember him playing against a good team in Sydney at that time. That was one that really sort of stuck in my mind. What about you, James? Is there a particular moment?
Well, I think just when you're speaking about 2021, he was close to, if not the best player in the comp for the second half of 2021. And I think, whether you like those rating systems, e.g. Champion Data, I think they all had him rated in the top sort of 3 players for the second half of that year. So, he did show how good he was, particularly through the midfield that year, actually. He got himself in some reasonable nick fitness-wise, and, he was dominant through the midfield and was always kicking 2 or 3 goals a game. So certainly that sticks in my mind, but the one for me, and probably a bit of recency bias as well, but the Easter Sunday barrel. I remember sitting at home on the Easter weekend with the old man, and we cheered that one home. And yeah, only Jake Stringer would have the license to unleash the barrel, and of course it went through.
Yeah, no, that was an absolute classic. What about you, Joel? Any more highlights?
I reckon, yeah. So obviously, I mentioned the one from a while back against the Suns, and then there was when he wanted to tackle, he was ferocious, which, that was one thing that, like, obviously you just always wanted to see more of. And there was times where he was like leading our tackles inside 50 and all this sort of stuff. But there was a tackle earlier this year. I remember that he laid on I think it was against the Giants potentially. And he just crunched someone in the forward 50, and it was just like, come on, Jakey, let's go. Like, that's what you want to see. And I had a lot of moments like that where, like, I just remember I'd be like, maybe with Mags at home or with the footy, and I'd just be like, that's a package, Mags, that's a package. And she'd be like, yeah, I get it. But yeah, so it's sad, but I feel like we need to mature as well. No more sugar highs, consistent long-term performance.
Yeah, for sure. A couple ones I wrote down, 2022, 5 goals against North. Also, I think round 20 as well. He was huge that day. The day he said competingness in an interview. That's one that I know that's one Mert really loved. But honestly, I think the thing I'm going to miss, particularly that we're coming into summer, is that who is Essendon media department and also the wider AFL media going to say is practically flying in December? Because Jake, as we know, when it was December, Jan, he was practically flying. Come Feb and March, his body has already broken down pre-round 1. So I will certainly miss that. I know, obviously, our dear friend Murdy's pretty. He's pretty upset by it all. I sent a message today. I was like, "Oh, look, he's about to have a kid, so he's a bit busy at the moment." But I said, if you want to send through a voice note, let me know. But he just said, look, he said he's pretty flattered and all. And he said, and Mert said he'll belt anyone who boos him when we play them. So that's how Mert felt. And where's this comment? Someone commented on our
there was definitely a few floating around.
But it just said, just saw Mert drop to his knees in a fish and chip shop, which that got me. So shout out to the person who said that. That was all time. One. But I think most of us can all revel in the highlights of Jake, and even though he's a premiership player from the Bulldogs, he still feels like he was kind of one of our own in a way. I don't know what it was about it. Maybe people disagree with me for that, but I did feel he was that kind of just rough kind of bloke who we loved, And I'm not bitter about him going. I'm happy to move on, and I think hopefully what that brings is a bit more balance to the side. So back to what I was saying before. So, people are saying online, he kicked 42 goals this season. So how do you replace that? Who's going to step up and kick the goals? I mean, I'll maybe go to you first on this one, James. If you can maybe single out a particular player or even players, who do you think will benefit from Jake Stringer not being at Essendon next season the most? Which player do you have in mind?
Well, and I think it was spoken about earlier in the week by Matt Rosa, I think it was, who first mentioned it. But the one that comes straight to my mind as well is Archie Perkins. Stringer obviously had that split between the midfield and forward, and I guess it's become known as the Dusty Martin role, essentially, where you're all-out attack, you're in at the centre bounce, and then you push forward and try damage sort of forward of centre and get on the scoreboard. And that's been Stringer's role for us for a long time, and some would argue that he was probably in that role for too long, and his body probably wasn't holding up, particularly through those midfield minutes. But I think it's a real opportunity for Archie to step into that role now and have a really defined role for us. I was pretty harsh on him this year because I was so disappointed in his output. But the one thing that I could probably defend him with is that what was his role? Did he ever really have a clear role? I'm not sure he did. So this is a real opportunity, if the coaches decide it, for Archie to step into this role, which is a bloody good role to have in AFL footy. There's a lot of blokes that play sacrificial roles and don't get a lot of the footy and don't get a lot of reward, this is an opportunity to play some pretty exciting footy, which is why we drafted Perkins. He was a damaging player that would hit the scoreboard, and this is his opportunity, I feel. So I'm really excited for Archie to step into that role. Hopefully it happens because I think he's good enough. Whether he takes that opportunity is another question, but that's where I see the replacement, if you like. In terms of the goals, I probably wouldn't expect Archie to be kicking 40 goals next year, although that'd be lovely. But hopefully a bloke called Isaac Kako can get a few of those.
Yeah, it's a good point you make about Perkins. Like I was talking to a few people in our Discord today, and I said that, let's be honest, like Archie Perkins had one good game in the midfield this season, I think, and that was round one against Hawthorn. And then he was pretty bad, and I think the thing that let him down the most was his defensive work. Like, if you can go back to that brutal game we lost against the Crows, often it was his man who was the one punishing us. I think Ben Keys at times, Perkins came on the sub in that last quarter, and Keys just destroyed Perkins in multiple occasions. So if he is freed up to be more of that attacking role, forward of the ball, maybe now and then he'll push up to a stoppage if he requires. I think that's a good thing, because we look at the guys we classify as midfielders in this team, and the list is as long as it gets for any position that we've got at the moment. So him moving out might mean that there's opportunity and minutes there for a Hobbs or a Sardis or someone else there as well. And then, like you said there, James, is he going to kick 42 goals next season? No, he's not. But I guess we'd hope that there's other players who are stepping up to add a bit more to that as well. Joel, is there anyone else you think's likely to benefit from Stringer's absence?
Look, I think that makes the most sense, but it's a really interesting, makes our forward line mix really interesting. So Peter Wright only kicked 19 goals this year. So let's say if Perko kicks 20 and Peter Wright kicks another 20, then we've kind of made up for it across those two. But obviously we've got Peter Wright, Kyle Langford, Perko, who you just talked about, his defensive pressure, and Caddy. Then Harry Jones and Kako maybe round out the six there. And you don't really immediately think about any of them being pressure players, potentially apart from Kako, but obviously we're not hanging all our hopes on that. So
Gresham's there as well, probably.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Gresham's the right. That makes a bit of sense. So I really want to make sure that we have to have forward 50 defensive pressure. It's such a big thing in footy at the moment, and immediately with Peter Wright, we kind of lose the ability for him to be a part of that. So everyone else has to lift their game. So, I guess I think Perkins makes the most likely sense, and maybe Gresham does pop up for a few more goals, but. Yeah, I'm really interested to see how we set up and if our forward line looks different or feels different without Paco there.
Yeah, exactly. I think something as well that I know some of the commenters who have talked about how you replace 42 goals will have glossed over is something else you have to think about is how many times was Jake Stringer targeted going inside 50 over the course of the season? Let's just say it's 100 times. And assuming we still have that many opportunities to go forward, because there's one thing we know from this season is that we weren't short on forward 50 entries. So that's 100 times is going to go to other players. Now, are they all going to do what Jake does? Not entirely sure. I do think Peter Wright benefits from this a little bit because, I think ideally he can go back to being a bit more of that focal point because Jake, as we know, obviously Peter Wright's not a great contested mark anyway, but Jake often when he had to play against a guy who was a lot bigger than him and he was, just doing the old, put it on my head, put it out the back sort of stuff. Like he wasn't really getting onto it, better on the lead, getting out into space. So, yeah, I'd hope it works out better for Peter. Langford didn't obviously have any issues. Like he still had a pretty solid year as well. And then we'll obviously see some more time put into Nate Caddy too. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I do hope that this just means our pressure is better and our structures are better because, we joked about it a lot in this pod, but I can think of that many times that I've watched Jake Stringer stand there and point behind me and I've spoken to former players from, the 90s and they've said to me, if you were doing that, you'd get dragged. It's like the first rule of being a forward is stop asking for it out the back all the time. Unless the opposition's playing some kind of wild high press, stop doing it. And Jake did that a lot. So hopefully whoever's taking his place is not. We'll move on, boys. we can talk a bit about the rest of the trade period as a whole. I guess the other big thing that occurred was that we did a pretty interesting pick swap with the Melbourne Football Club. So I'll just read it out for anyone who isn't completely across it, but Essendon received pick 28, 40, 46, 54, and 65 for a future first round, and a future first round pick, Melbourne received our pick 9 in this draft and our future third round pick. So off the top, I think this is a good thing for both parties. Melbourne get a second first round pick in what is touted as a pretty promising draft. Essendon, we get the picks we need so we can get Isaac Kako, regardless of where he's called. And we've got some extra picks as well because we only had the 2 picks coming into the draft. And Matt Rose has said pretty early on this trade window that we want to take probably 3 or 4 players. And now we have the opportunity to do that. So I guess off the top, Joel, what was your thoughts around this?
What I liked about it is it just seemed really considered, when the trade period started and there was like the names that we discussed on the last pod being thrown out, in my head, I was just like, what value are any of these guys going to add? Whereas this feels really calculated. Like they're thinking long term. They're thinking, okay, well, like, what makes the most sense for us, and then maybe how do we look into the future, having obviously now 2 first-round picks that might be quite good next year as well. So I just like that it feels more considered maybe in the past than, every trade period it's always like, oh, Essendon's being difficult, Essendon's doing this, Essendon's throwing some crazy thing out here. It's like, so it just feels like we're considering the future more, which is really excited. And I think it's the Harley Reid play for sure, without a doubt. A couple of future first rounders going over to West Coast, I'd say.
Yeah, not to get ahead of ourselves or anything.
That's exactly what's happening. But yeah, no, I think it's a smart play. And, as you said, this draft apparently goes quite deep as well. So, I think a pick 30, 40, in this draft might mean more than it does next year, hypothetically.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. We're still getting a top 15, top 10 talent with our picks. So even though 9 has gone, we still get Kako. Like, I think there was a few people who were like, why are we giving away pick 9? It makes no sense. Like, no, like it does make sense. Like, I think the only way that one of the parties loses out of this really badly is if Kako is a bust, or what the kids Melbourne picks up is a bust, or alternatively, if Melbourne finishes last next season, that's pretty bad. They don't have their first round pick. Or if they win the flag, we go, oh, we got pick 18. But again, we still got Kako, like it's just kind of the way the NGA stuff works. So, James, your thoughts on the move?
Yeah, I agree with Joel. It makes sense. I mean, I spoke on the last pod around would have been nice to bid for Kako and then also use our pick 9 because this draft is a strong one, as Joel mentioned again. But, it just wasn't going to happen. My understanding is St Kilda, who were clearly annoyed at the whole setup of all of that. We're going to ruffle some feathers, and it would have been nothing short of a disaster if we had have lost our pick 9, matching a bid and got nothing in return. So we've got Kako, we've got a future first. We've obviously got a number of those later picks as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we try and trade back in on the night after the bid, just because it is a strong draft. I know some other clubs who are stacked with picks, a la Richmond, might be keen to spread a couple out to next year as well. So there could be a deal done there, which again would be pretty calculated and smart, as Joel touched on. So, yeah, it all seems pretty considered. It seems like it's a long-term approach, and, yeah, it all really makes sense, which we haven't said a lot of during Essendon trade periods over the last year.
Yeah. I think there's probably an element of Matt Rosa needing to repair some relationships across the league, I would say, as well. Like, you wouldn't want to come into your first trade period and seriously ruffle any feathers and kind of set the tone that Essendon's the same old Essendon and we're doing the same old thing. So, I think it just feels considered and like, I'm one to, act quickly and wear my heart on my sleeve and stuff like that. So I kind of like that, like there's this direction that just feels like a little bit more calculated.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and I did enjoy some of the press. Obviously, trade radio time is a time to scramble for content, but there was a lot of I'll say it, Damien Barrett, who was just like, Essendon aren't doing anything to improve this trade period. They're not doing anything. There's nothing going on at Essendon. It's like, well, sorry, like we can't be writing the headlines for you every single week. Like I know last year obviously we went pretty hard in free agency. There weren't free agents. I mean, look, there were players I probably would have liked to have taken, but I think for what we wanted and the money, it probably just wasn't right. And that's it. So yeah, I did enjoy the fact that like Essendon's not doing anything. It's like, well, doing stuff in this window very aggressively hasn't worked for us so far. So let's just be a bit more methodical about it.
Yep.
Now, one thing I will say, boys, is I'm very excited for next year because I'm pretty sure this is the first time that we've held a future first for another club, if I'm correct. Like I know we've obviously traded for direct picks in the next draft coming up, but this is the first time we're sitting on a future first ever. So I'm looking forward to the D's death ride next season, fellas. Now, well, we've got the summer to think about it, but I reckon we'll have to do a new segment on the pod. We might do it every single week because when they win a couple of games in a row, we'll probably just gloss over it. But, from me being totally indifferent to how Melbourne goes next season, not really caring, I'm now hoping for a Petrarca and Oliver implosion, maybe a knee injury to Gorney and a few other things, and we'll just death ride them for the whole season and hope they finish in the bottom four. So that's going to be fun, isn't it?
I think they've been doing their best to implode over the summer as it is, Rob. I don't know if we have to cheer it on. They're having a red-hot crack.
Yeah, far out. It's 2 years in a row for them, isn't it? Because all the Clary stuff was last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe I'll just start getting up in the comments of Track's cooking channel and just putting him off his game,
Yeah.
That's not how you make a bolognese, mate. What the fuck's that? Oh.
You stole that recipe again.
Yeah, stole it. You got that off Recipe Tin Eats website. I've seen that.
Yeah. What I like about what's happening, I guess, not at Melbourne. I like that, obviously. That's clear. But I think us making no moves really throws the gauntlet down to players that we have drafted over the last 4 or 5 years, or brought in, and like we obviously spoke about Perkins, Cox, Reid. And even like the likes of like Ridley and Redmond, who should be playing their best footy, it really kind of throws down the gauntlet to all of them. And it's like, no, you guys are the guys. And I feel like there's probably a little bit of like, we're not afraid now to shop people around if they're not going to buy in. So you guys get one more crack at it. And like it'll be interesting to see what happens with Redmond, who's on a 7-year deal, if he plays another year like this year and kind of seems like he's disinterested. And I think it lays down a good challenge to everyone as well, I think, being a bit quieter in this period.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, the thing as well, like, 3 players who were pretty much first-team players for the majority of the season are now gone. So Stringer's obviously left, Jake Kelly's retired, and Heppel's retired. Now, obviously, we saw a bit of, oh, my God, I've just gone blank in his name. I've been on holidays. What's his name? No, the young fella. Oh, my God.
Roberts?
Yeah, Archie Roberts.
Oof.
Obviously Archie
like
Roberts came in for Heppel, which we like, but Kelly and Stringer, there's spaces available now to play. And obviously Goldie will still be there next season, but I guess we all hope that we don't have to see Goldie too often. But they're also like, those are some of senior guys on our list. Like coming into round 1 next season, there's only 2 players over 30 on the list. Merritt's 29 and everyone else is younger than that. So, Goldie is going to probably skew the age average, but we will be running with a younger group. And I think I'm excited to see younger guys get some opportunity and given the reins a bit and going, hey, this is on you to be disciplined, be a professional and improve and actually grow and take this club forward. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm not sure about you guys.
Yeah, I think the we've seen it work in other clubs recently. Probably Hawthorn's the example, and I don't want to be a bunch of wankers like they all are. Rob and I actually saw him at the pub the day after they lost that final, and a few of them made comments to us as we were walking past, and they were exactly as you would expect. But bunch of dickheads. But anyway, I like the fact that they've embraced youth and they've thrown the gauntlet to the people with the energy, you know, and said it's up to you to inject energy back into this club, you know.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that we might have the opportunity to see some of that next year and get excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. So just to wrap things up, we'll just sort of run through our draft hand and a few of the sort of options that are available there. So we come in with picks 28, 31, 40, 46, 53, 54, and 65. Now, there was a video I think the Herald Sun put out where they kind of explained the Kako situation. But for those who haven't seen it, if Kako, Kako, I'm going to get used to saying that. Oh no. All right, I'm allowed one. I'm allowed one for this episode, and that's it. Next season, can't be doing that. So if Kako's taken at pick 7, which is 1,551 points, with a discount that you get because he's our NGA player, it's 1,241 points. Essentially, we can use picks 28 and 31, and then you get a late pick back with a bit of the leftovers. But essentially what you're left with there is 40, 46, 53, 54, the extra pick and pick 65. So there's a bit to play with here. The first thing I want to say is I would really love, and I hope, that Matt Rose has got some real rogue West Australian-based players that we've never fucking heard of before. He just pulls out of nowhere. That's one. I would love that. And then the other two is that there are 2 other guys associated with their NGA academy that we could potentially pick up. So one is Noah Carosella, which is Blake's son, 188 centimetre defender. And then the other one is Jaden Nguyen, who's a small defender who I couldn't find his height when I was looking before. But anyway, he's a small defender, you know, sort of running half-back type player. So Nguyen I've heard a little bit more about, so maybe that means he's a bit more of a chance to get picked up. But that'd be pretty cool if we pick up one or both of those guys because, you know, we've got a slew of late picks there and then potentially someone else, or as James alluded to, the possibility of moving up in the draft. Any comments on any of those guys, James?
I'd be lying if I said I knew a whole heap around those boys. I've heard some good things around New, and I believe he tested really well in some of those fitness measures that they do. That doesn't always translate to being a good footballer, unfortunately. But he looks like someone that'd be worth giving an opportunity to, particularly as he's obviously come through our academy. I don't know a whole lot about Noah Carosella, to be honest. I'm not sure if either of you boys do. But yeah, I mean, at that pick range, you know, you can obviously roll the dice a little bit, and you do have the license to roll the dice. So if he's got some rogue players out west, if they want to give those kids a go after coming through the academy, I'm all for it.
Yeah. 177 centimetres he is. And the club says he's a running carry midfielder. So sorry, he's not a small defender, but there you go. So yeah, he's the one who's had a bit of stuff written about him. So I feel like that means that he's more likely, but I don't know. Joel, I'll ask you: is there a particular type of player you would like to see us pick up in this draft? Because I don't expect you to know a great deal about all these kids. Like for most of us, all you really know is the 5-minute highlight reels, and it's pretty hard to judge if anyone's good off those reels. But is there a type of player you'd like to see us go for?
I think I would like extra goal-kicking presence. So like a key forward that we could hypothetically see develop over time.
Yep.
Yeah, to be honest, I feel like that would probably want to be said. Potentially another key back, if there was a good one around, because obviously the amount of hopes that we've got pinned on Reed isn't always going to, pay off. I'd love the kid. He's absolute silk. But yeah, I think those are probably my two.
Yeah. What about you, James?
I think probably a tall at each end that could develop. I mean, we've got Lewis Hayes in the reserves, who I'm pretty optimistic about for season 2025. But I think the opportunity's there, continuing that long-term outlook, maybe a key forward and a key back to develop over the next couple of years, and hope you strike gold somewhere along the line there.
Yeah. That's fair. I'm just going to say I'd like us to go for an elite user Now, they could play any position, and maybe they're one of those players who they're not hitting all the physical things required. They're not doing well on their times and their jumps and all that, but they've just got an absolute dart of a kick. Just give one of those kids a chance. I don't know who that is. They might not even exist. Maybe I'm just dreaming, but I think that's what I'd like. Just a couple more fellas. Will Setterfield re-signed for 1 season. Happy, not happy? How do you feel, Joel?
Yeah, happy, I think. I think he's a great option to have there in case people drop off the park. So I'm happy that he's around.
Yeah, James?
Yeah, he's played some really strong footy for us. Obviously, his body has let him down of recent times, and it's really always been a battle for him. But when he's strung together some games, he's been pretty strong for us. I spoke around our interest or rumoured interest in Finn McGuinness, and I think if we had have brought McGuinness across, that probably would have been the end for Setters. But we didn't bring in anyone of that nature. So yeah, glad for him to get another year, and hopefully he can get his body right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a big body to have at a stoppage, and with obviously questions around Darthy Parish and what his body's going to be able to do and whether it'll hold up to the rigours of footy next season, having another option that maybe you can bring in for a week or two here and there is quite good. I would love to see Setterfield brought in for particular matches where he has a good matchup or maybe suitable conditions. There was a few wet games we played last season where if he was fit and available, Will Setterfield in the guts might have been pretty handy, knowing that some of our mids can still get pushed around a little bit. And the other two who are unsigned at time of recording is the Weed and Jaden Davey. Do we think they're going to stay? I guess you kind of know after the draft, I guess, is sort of the idea and whether or not we go for any delisted players. Joel, do you want to keep either of those two?
I don't want to keep Weed.
Do you want to think about it, Joel? Or?
Yeah.
Nah, I've thought about it enough, as much as I need to. Davey's one of those ones where I guess you kind of just hope that they're going to come on. But are they ever really? So I guess if there's a spot, he can have it.
Yeah, that's fair. James?
Agree with Joel. I would see the back of Weed. I think we've seen him have a go, probably more than what we all would have wanted, to be honest. He's shown us what he's capable of, and it's simply not good enough AFL football. So I'd say the back of Weed. I really, we haven't seen Davey, Jaden Davey, and so it'd be disappointing to let him go and have that what if. I'd love to see him, give him an opportunity, get his body right, and if he's not good enough, then we know. But yeah, I would keep Davey and say see you later to the Weed.
Yeah. I guess it depends if they want to pick up Josh Rotham as a delisted free agent. We'll determine whether or not we want any more defenders. But anyway, I think that's all from us, fellas. Unless there's any other players you might have read about in the draft? You got any insight? Any idea? Joel, I know you're usually watching school kids run around every day, so maybe you've spotted a few talented ones in your time. I don't know.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I've just had my eyes on other things this year, so just haven't been able to pay as much attention as I would normally like.
Fair. That's fair.
The one year I paid heaps of attention to the draft was when we who's the bloke that plays for St Kilda now that has a booming left foot that we didn't draft 2 years ago, and I think we picked Sardis instead. Maybe?
Yeah,
Showmaker, is it?
No,
not Showmaker. Philippou,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got really into the draft that year, and I was so big on Philippou, and then that happened, and I was like, why did I bother spending the last month researching everything?
Yeah,
what will be.
I don't know. I just look, if you watch a lot of these kids play, in the rep teams, and it's not called TSF. What is it now? Coates League. I understand if you watch these people and you know who's good, but I don't know. I just find that the draft is a lot of people who've watched a 5-minute highlight reel and gone, "This guy's the best in the league." It's like, no, he's not. What do you base that off of? I'll read Carl's guide and go, okay, that's the guide. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's see who it is. I feel like the year I was the most invested in the draft was when I was 18, because I knew like 2 guys who were nominating. I'm like, oh my God, they might go play AFL. Like, as you get older, you're like, oh, well, just see who we pick up. Like, couldn't tell you. But yeah, fingers crossed for some real rogue Western Australians that we've never heard of. That's what I'm hoping for. More WA boys. So anyway, fellas, thank you for joining me. It's been good to pay Paco his respects as he departs Essendon for a life in Western Sydney, where he'll have ample opportunity to pursue his religious beliefs now that he's in Western Sydney, which we love. There's lots of venues there for him. So, let's just hope that he doesn't kick a bag against us, and GWS don't win the flag, and we have to sit there and watch him get a medal. So, let's hope not.
Thanks for the good times, Paco.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for the memories. Well, boys, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I guess we might be back after the draft. I don't know. Maybe if there's some news going on. Otherwise, look after yourselves, stay safe, and enjoy the off-season. See you, boys.
See you, boys.
Bye-bye.